Before we get into today's episode, I want to give a quick shout out to our founding sponsor, Digital Recruiter Podcast, Signature Back Office Solutions. If you're running a staffing firm, if you're a direct hire and your clients are asking you about contractors and all that, you're trying to figure out where am I going to get funding or payroll taken care of, talk to Signature Back Office Solutions, signaturebackoffice.com. They've been doing this since 2006. They work with over 400 staffing firms. They'll handle everything, payroll, compliance, workers' comp in all 50 states. You don't have to worry about a thing. Make sure to check out the link in the episode summary. Book a call with my good friend, John Davis, the president CEO of Signature Back Office Solutions. All right, today I'm joined by Eric Tabone, the Managing Director of Nearshore Business Solutions, Nearshore in Latin America. And obviously it's one of those things that is kind of been a lot more visible recently. Even Digital Recruiter, we hired someone in Mexico City, and I've been kind of more accustomed to the nearshore process in the last year and a half. And so I'm just really excited to talk to Eric today about what he's seeing, what he's built, what he's seeing in the space, right? Team building, scaling, and because I know a lot of our listeners are trying to figure out what's the best way to build out a team for my recruitment agency. So we're going to dive into all that good stuff. So Eric, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, Clark. Good to see you, man. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it. Appreciate it.
Likewise. Well, let's start off with how did you get here, right? How did Nearshore Business Solutions come to be? What's the origin story?
Yeah. So, quick backstory. I'm originally from the Dallas-Fort Worth area in Texas. About 17, 18 years ago, I couldn't get a job, so I decided to go traveling. Made it down to Bogota, and I was in here for a couple months, and I kind of forgot to go back, and I'm still here. So that trip keeps getting expanded ever since I arrived. Obviously, during that time, I've done quite a bit. I've started a couple companies. So this is my third company. Obviously, I have my family and kids here, so there's obviously my personal aspects. But with Nearshore Business Solutions, we've been around for about 2 years now, and I was leading revenue for a multinational revenue, like go-to-market strategy, and I was kind of giving recruitment. And it was something I kind of started to realize that it was something that I was actually naturally good at, and I really enjoyed. And so when I left that company, I decided to think, what can I kind of do next? And one thing that kind of kept coming up over and over again with a lot of my friends back home, back in the United States, was like, hey, how can we hire people in Latin America? Well, I've been here 18 years. And I've done this a lot with my previous companies. I don't even know how many people I had to hire, but it was a heavy emphasis on human capital. So constantly hiring, bringing people onboarding them, getting the team performing. And so now I ended up just creating an agency. And what we specifically do, we help U.S. companies hire in Latin America. And that was about 2 years ago. So here we are today.
I love it. And so what were some of the, when your friends were saying, hey, we want to hire people in Latin America, what was the driving force behind that you've seen?
Yeah, so when you think about nearshoring, so take a quick step back. Nearshoring is when U.S. companies hire in Latin America. Offshoring is when they hire people, in Asia, India, Pakistan, Philippines, however you look at that. And then you have onshore, which is if you're a U.S. company, you're hiring in the U.S.
Yeah.
One of the things that kind of comes up quite a bit and was one of the drivers, and this is something I still talk about on a daily basis, was for onshore, i.e. in the U.S., oftentimes it was just too expensive to get the right people they needed, or for whatever reason they couldn't find them at a specific time. So, for example, right after pandemic, especially within tech, a lot of those tech roles, there was such a tech craze, people couldn't actually hire the developers or engineers they needed. And so that's when they started to kind of look across borders. I kind of go back, pandemic, for a lot of people was a pretty difficult experience. But one thing that pandemic did help us with is teach us how to work remote. And I was talking about this morning. When you work remote, you kind of remove those borders and people could work from wherever in the world. And so, yeah, that's kind of where it came from within Latin America. And people started to look at how do we get those people, same time zones? How do they save some money and start building out those teams?
Yeah. I think the time zone thing is definitely part of it, and depending on the industry or the title, whether it's engineer or sales or content, right? I mean, that's going to kind of the potential talent pool availability and where you could hire from. But I think it's even immediately the time zone thing was a nice piece for us.
Yeah.
Um, what's the in terms of like the best like practice like or I guess what are some like the myths that you feel like you run into when you're talking to people about nearshore that you're like, I know this, I get this a lot, but like this is just like not actually how it is when you like dig
Yeah.
in.
Yeah, so quite a bit, quite frequently. I'll start off
Yeah.
with Colombia, where I live. And myths about Colombia, the first thing I'll say is everybody thinks Colombia is dangerous. And I kind of want to clarify that. I've been here 18 years, never had any problems. And I often joke and say Hollywood has not helped Colombia by any means. And so
Yeah.
people thinking about nearshore, like, wait, do you guys have electricity there? It must be always hot. I live at 9,000 feet. I'm in a sweater right now with a space heater on at the equator. And I don't think people realize that. Um, and then when actually just like in general nearshoring across Latin America, I mean, people often ask like, they don't speak English. Well, that's not true. My entire team, they all speak perfect English. Especially client facing, you can't even tell that they're from a Latin American country. Other different like myths that come up that I kind of speak about quite a bit is, oh, it must be difficult to do this, or it must be more complicated. And hiring people internationally, it's not more complicated. There's certain things you have to think through, making sure like, hey, do you have digital infrastructure set up to speak with them? That's Slack, chat, video, however you want. And do you have a quick way to do international payments? But realistically, hiring somebody in Latin America, it's no more complicated than hiring somebody in Texas if you're based in California. So that just kind of makes it interesting. Yeah, just talking people through those.
I'm with you. I mean, beyond establishing right the language piece and then the payments piece, it's all to your point. That's what I've experienced. There's no like harder or easier or anything else like that, and you just kind of navigate some of
Yeah.
those things just like you would for any domestic hire.
Yeah. Yeah, hundred
So
percent, 100%. You said you have somebody in Mexico. What does your person in Mexico do?
they were initially recruiting on the agency side, then I
Nice.
pulled her over for digital recruiter help with a lot of I would say SDR type functions. And
Okay.
so for digital recruiter, it's kind of this newer role that we're seeing in the market is because there's automation and now there's AI and there's content, there's a couple things that are happening, which is what's the balance between using automation for my outreach? How evolved is AI in terms of creating the messaging, the outreach, the response, everything else? So really, and then even the comments on different LinkedIn posts and everything else. And so there's a balance of I wanted someone that could think like a recruiter to
Okay.
handle and operate that and our team and that had the recruiting background. She's got 15 years of experience, but
Awesome.
so I wanted the recruiting knowledge both for our stuff, but for also our clients that we worked with. So it's not just like, I don't treat the role as like a throwaway of like, oh, anyone can make the comment. So we work a lot on, hey, for the grammar, I don't want AI grammar, right? So I
Mm,
challenge her, like, here are our SOPs, here's what we're going for. I actually am going to challenge you to write it out how you
yeah.
would normally, but use AI to help you come up with what you're going to write, but actually get away from AI grammar completely, right? Because everyone is rightfully turned off by it, right? And I hate
Yeah.
it myself. So it's like a very collaborative SDR, coming like type role, like helping with some of the public facing or even some of the
Right.
DMs, but
That's
done at
awesome.
just a little bit of a higher strategic level.
Awesome.
I don't see it done that much out in the market, and so it's kind of like redefining the job description, which I think she's like very into. And to your point, with I think some of the pay rate stuff, it allows us to do it at a compensation level that is that is manageable, right?
Yeah.
That like where everyone's happy. As we really start to define what this role looks like and then establish it more and more and systemize it more, and then I could hire it anywhere, domestically, near shore,
Yeah.
offshore, wherever, just depending on like, on the different tiers. So
No, yeah, nice one. I think, and you comment on something that I think is really important. So, when people go near shore, one of the first things that people think about is cost savings, which obviously is a very big benefit. There's several that more that we could talk about, but with cost savings, like the biggest formula I often tell people is whatever this would cost in the United States, cut it in half, and you could probably find that person in Latin America. But here's the cool part. that's not taking advantage of anybody in Latin America at all. And more often than not, that compensation helps give them a raise or gives them an opportunity that they want to work with a US company and to actually move things forward. So it's kind of a win-win situation when you think about it.
Yeah, it's been great, and yeah, there's been so many benefits. And one of the other things that I've noticed internally, like to build off of that, is for a couple of the hires we've had to make one offshore, make one nearshore, actually allowed us to help expand and scale to make more domestic hires, right? Because I know some
Awesome.
people are kind of like, I don't know, like I want to hire in the States, and I kind of was like that. Do I want an all American based team? But this allowed us as a small business to understand and kind of define the role to be able to actually expand and scale and then bring on more domestic type talent. So we have a blend on our team of California, Florida, Texas, Mexico, Philippines,
Awesome.
like kind of everyone. And it's just like we're able to kind of be a little bit more strategic about it. And like it all works, right?
That's
It kind of works for us. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Glad it's going well and glad you got to experience it. But yeah, it's something
Yeah.
that it's been a cool trend moving forward.
Absolutely. So, talk to me. I want to backpedal a little bit because this is so interesting. When I was reading your story and what you're kind of sharing with me as we're going back and forth on communication. So, you had the 5K move. You relocated to Colombia. You had nothing. You didn't speak Spanish and all that. And I got to like, did you throw a dart at the map? Like, what happened? Like, what was the reason behind that choice? Uh,
Yeah, so I graduated in 2008, and for those listening who probably remember, depending on how old you are, not the best time to get a job in
I
2008.
was '09. No, it was terrible.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was horrible. I studied finance, and so I mean, like it was impossible, and so I chose to do some traveling around. So I did a good part of Latin America, and I remember in '08, I came through Bogota. I just had a really good time here for a few days, and so then in 2010 I came back. And the plan, I wanted to come back to Bogota because I liked the weather. I still love the weather here. You know, it's 60, 65 degrees year round. I'm at 9,000 feet at the equator. It's a massive civilized city. It's like London, to an extent. And I like the chillier weather. And so I knew I wanted chillier weather and I wanted to go learn Spanish. And so I came down and I was like, I'll be here for a couple months and I was going to head back. But one thing just kind of kept going and going. And so I got here, I started to make some great friends. I started my first company, which I worked in language training, so corporate education for adults across the country and region. I met a girl who eventually became my wife. I mean, so like there's like four or five things that all just kind of came together to keep me
Yeah.
here. And yeah, I mean, when I arrived, I spoke no Spanish. I think when I got off the plane, I think the only thing I could say at the time was like "una cerveza, por favor." So I knew how to order a cold beer, and that was about it.
Yeah.
But something like I think people who like traveling internationally, people are people, and I don't care where you go in the world. Everybody, to an extent, has things that they can relate on, and people overall are very good. And I got here, I was welcome. People wanted to help me, and when you don't speak the language, you start to pick it up pretty quickly if you don't have
Yeah.
anybody to speak with. And yeah, here I am, 18, 17 years later.
How did how do you feel like putting yourself like in a new environment, out of the comfort zone, right? Like what do you feel like that did for you personally, career wise, just to kind of throw yourself in an environment and kind of have to figure it out?
Well, I mean, when you're put in an environment, you have no idea what's going on. You gotta think on your feet quite a bit. And so, for
Yeah.
example, I mean, it was something as simple as like, okay, I'm at point A, I gotta get to point B. And I have so many hilarious stories if I'd catch the wrong bus and I end up in an area I probably shouldn't be in. And you just think very quickly, how do you adjust and get out of that and just keep things moving? And so from a career, when you think about it, I mean, I don't know about you, but I've had quite a few career setbacks. And I'm sure quite a few
Yeah.
people listening have had issues. Well, when I was 24 years old, I learned very quickly how to figure out and deal with setbacks, and that was traveling in a different country in a different language that I didn't speak. And you just learn it as a person to kind of adjust that. So, I mean, obviously, a career. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur the majority of my career, but it taught me how to quickly expand, like respond to situations that I didn't know how. But then, just also as a father and a husband, it's the same thing. So, like, what happens if my kid does this and I wasn't expecting it?
Yeah.
I've seen it all now.
It's that resiliency, and I see it across the board with anyone, especially that gets eventually gets involved with hiring and placing people, and then people are making decisions. And do I take this job or not take this job? Right? Like it's a very emotional
Mm,
time and decision. And I think that resiliency, because I've seen recruiters, survive and then thrive, and then some try to survive and then don't maybe make it in the
yeah,
industry. But I think that resiliency and putting yourself in uncomfortable situations and just figuring it out. I mean, that's what leans in to all this. I think that's where people end up almost relying on recruiter or trusted recruiters at times. It's like when you kind of have that resiliency and that confidence that you can problem solve and all that. I think it's such a good test to be an entrepreneur and to
yeah,
have those lessons just like ingrained in you. It's like, hey, like there's a way to figure this stuff out, or it can be all right. And I think if you don't aren't used to putting yourself in those places, like recruiting is
hmm
really hard. Right, it's really hard for people, and it's more of like those intangibles. Like the formula to recruiting is pretty simple, right? It's always the execution that gets it, and just the mental game, just to keep
yeah,
after it day after day.
yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this part, but I would say I don't think there's any rocket science behind recruiting. It's
I agree.
showing up,
Yeah.
and it's just showing up every day, executing over and over again, and
Yeah.
being a bit better every single day.
There's a
It's like,
savvy, I
yeah,
think, is what I think. And it's not necessarily right, but like, are you savvy?
yeah,
Is what I see. I had a post the other day. It was like if the people that win working with us, especially on like the LinkedIn, it's like I said, strategic, savvy, and consistent. Right. So savvy doesn't mean you have the highest IQ or you're a rocket scientist. It's just navigating people and conversations and ebbs and flows and understanding the cadence of rapport and relationship building and all that. Like it's much more of like a rhythm, right, that you
yep,
kind of get into versus just like I know more than everyone else. That's like great. I know recruiters that know a lot of stuff that make zero placements
mm,
because they overthink everything. They think they have to know everything to produce. I was like, no, you just got to go do activity, right? Or like you're coming across like a know-it-all to hiring managers, and that's why no one wants to work with you. Versus
mm,
like coming across like collaborate, like more of like a people talk about being a consultant, but almost like what is like a good consult, like collaborating and knowing how to collaborate with people and all that, and meeting them where they're at, like matters
yep.
more, like within the formula that you're trying to execute.
And I would even take it a step farther. I think recruiting, I love it. I'm so grateful I fell into this. But I also find recruiting to be very similar to a sales role. Because not
Yeah,
only are you trying to sell the company, but you sell the client and you're trying to make that connection.
yeah.
And going back to what you said, being savvy, making sure you kind of connect it, and being fun or nice to work with. Yeah, don't be a know it all.
Underrated. Yeah,
Yeah, 100% on board.
very underrated. Well, speaking of that, you we mentioned the human piece being fun, all that. I know obviously AI is changing so many things with sourcing and everything else. How have you kind of seen the evolution? What's your balance or your harmony line with like this is where AI is involved, this is where the humans involved? What's kind of been your guys' approaches on that?
Yeah, 100%. This is something I think about quite a bit, and we do quite a bit of work with that. I actually think you said something a bit earlier that hit the nail exactly, or pretty much clarified it perfectly. You always need some type of human to still be involved. So you're talking a bit about having your SDR to an extent, making sure that the comments make sense. It's just not AI writing or AI slop. So I think the best companies, and for recruiting especially, the best recruiting companies are successful when they use AI to help make them be better at their job, but it doesn't do the job. And you go back to like writing, like you could tell very quickly if AI wrote something.
Yeah.
I could see it a mile away. So internally we have a AI operations specialist that I work with, and their only job is help analyze everything we do as a recruiting firm on a daily basis. When I say daily, I mean we work on more like on 2 week sprints, but what process are we doing? What can we use automation or AI to help us with? I'll give you a really good example. One of the biggest things we came up with that even today I'm just still blown away when I see it works is, where do recruiters spend the most time? Building the profiles. So obviously to build the profile, you got to do everything before that. And so we created different automations that help when they get off the interviews, the interview notes automatically go to our LLMs that are connected. We review the job description, review the resume, and within 5 minutes, we have a profile that was built. However, that only gets us to 90% of where we are. Because every single time the recruiter has to review the entire profile, make sure this is clear, make sure this lines up, shows our strengths, weaknesses, etc., however you want to build out those profiles. But that alone saves recruiters, what, an hour per candidate that they present?
It's amazing. It's one of my favorite use cases for on the recruiting side, right? For all this, it's just all the admin work, right? It's like most of recruiting. I think about when I started at Aerotech 13 years ago. It was always the admin work that bogs you down. It was the reason why I spent 12 hours in the beginning every day working, because it was all the candidates I had to talk to and build my network, and then all the admin work to send that along. Yeah. And I mean, you could do in what I used to do in 12 hours in 6 now, like every day, right? And that's effective. And like, how do you reallocate that time? It could be better quality of life, or okay, what I used to do in 12 hours I could do in 6. Now I have an extra 2 hours every day if I'm working 8-hour days to do something else, to advance my desk and my business and everything else. Yep. I think that's what's awesome. In terms of executing something like that, like, I think that's the problem. I see a lot of stop and start projects with people with AI. Like, what does that look like to, like, we have this idea, we're executing it, now we're doing it, and then your AI ops specialist is like maintaining that. Like, what does that look like? Because that's like the time on a project is what I get asked about all the time.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of different ways we could manage this. And so this is something that we help quite a few different organizations do as well. When I say help, because a role we do quite a bit is this type of role: AI operations, coordinated AI operations, develop, whatever you want to call it. But somebody who understands pretty much AI and how to actually implement and make this work. But I mean, the first thing I would say is, like, do they actually have clear what it is they need? Do they understand where their start point is and their end point? They don't have to understand the pathway to get there, but at least kind of understand what goes in. And making sure they could then communicate that to either somebody who comes on to help them do this, or B, which, sometimes this is a good option. If people enjoy trying to get their hands dirty, going to try to vibe code. I'm not saying vibe code big projects, but if somebody has an extra 30 minutes a day, sitting on Claude, try to figure out things and figure out how things connect, spend a week. And if you could get something somewhat working, great. But if not, at least you have a week of knowledge that you can then share with that person who wants to come in and execute that project. So assuming somebody goes with actually bringing somebody on, and this is what I did in my case. I love vibe coding. I don't know about you.
I love it. Yeah.
It's so, yeah, I love it. And I just love putting on music, and I could be lost in this for hours upon hours. But I don't know how to code. And I get my projects to 80%. And I know that's very clear. But at least I have clear then how to communicate this to my team on how to execute. And so then the guy I pretty much say, hey, this is our process. I always make sure I have SOP, standard operating procedure, or some type of scope of work set up, saying this is what I need and this is the deliverables. How you get it done, I don't care, because that's their job. But I sometimes try to give them some type of direction. And then I usually do some type of check-in or sprints with that. So a sprint, simple concept, I say, hey, we're starting here. We're going to check in 1 week, every single week at this time, or every 15 days. And you have different types of points for them to actually execute and build and get that developed. Once you get it developed, the big question is, how do you get people on board using it? I mean, that just comes down to trading. And I think this is where oftentimes where things fall off. I mean, if you have the best tool in the world, but nobody else knows how to use it, it's not going to happen. And this is, I mean, for those, if you're running a company, as usually founder-led or C-level, how, depending on the size of your company, they got to be involved within this training and have some buy-in. If the leaders don't want to do this, it's not going to happen. If people are doing a 1-2 5-man desk, something like that, I mean, this is something that you just get your hands dirty. But once you get it, it works.
That's it. I mean, that's what I told my company, my team. Let's just, we got to be the pace car for this AI operations world as it relates to digital sales, digital marketing, especially like LinkedIn, and just stay on top of it, right? The do's and don'ts, making sure you're sticking with the fundamentals and everything else. And so a lot of what we're doing is like the done for you like setup, right? We'll set up the automation, the profile, the content, and the content engine. But then the ongoing support is just, do we have the guardrails? Are we staying within the bumpers?
Yep.
Or people like veering off track? Are they not adding more leads every week? Like, it's just like, what are the best practices ongoing? And to your point, that the companies and organizations that are investing that ongoing support,
Yeah.
it's a game changer for them, because then they're not like, it's to your point, like they're embedded. It's just like part of the business, week to week, bi-weekly. Just like you have your stand-up calls on what roles are we working on and what's the follow-up, you have to have it on your systems and your ops and your content. Like, there's really no excuse not to have it. And yeah, I don't expect people to spend 9 hours a day on it. Don't make sure you're spending at least an hour or two a week
Yeah.
on it. And like, that's just enough to make sure you're in the game, and find the expert, whether it's internal or external, someone to partner with. And just to your point, just make sure you're in the game and just chipping away at this like week to week.
What do you see makes somebody successful, and what is often the thing that derails a project with clients you've worked with?
Overthinking, people thinking way too much about how people are going to respond to this versus just doing it and seeing how they actually respond. So published is better than perfect with content. Being lazy with the AI grammar. Oh, I had AI make this. It's like, yeah, but have you seen your feed? It looks like everything else in your feed.
Hmm.
So just a lack of self-awareness, I would
Yeah.
say, on what they're putting out there. Not the what's in it for them. A lot of producers are very self-involved with, well, I have to just make an extra call because that's my activity for the day. I'm like, right, but there's a person on the other end even care that you're calling? Are you giving them
Yeah.
any sort of value? And I just covered this on a group call earlier today. It was about AI, but it was like, okay, we have all this great information from AI. And someone was asking me, well, do I do my 100 cold calls every day? I'm like, you're better off calling 10 people that have reposted roles that you feel like you could place, and be like, hey, I saw you reposted this. That's a trigger that they're probably not making the placement. Why is
Yep.
that? Versus just 100 blind calls, right? So what is effective? And always think through that lens, versus I just checked off something so I feel like I'm productive. But if no one cares, then that's only help. It's a quote unquote, it's like junk food, right? It's help is you make you feel like you're full and you ate something, but like you just could be
But you're not
hungry
full.
again, right?
Yeah.
Versus doing things like activities that are providing actual nourishment. I know it's a kind of a weird way to phrase it or to say it, but like, is this actually valuable, right? If it takes you an extra 15 minutes to craft a better post versus I had AI do it and I posted it and I went off to do something else, well, the whole market could see that post. So like, be careful what you put out there, right? I would rather handwrite a post and have 3 spelling errors on my LinkedIn feed than have a crappy AI post with M dashes and this and the it's not this, it's that, and that phrasing, right? You're
Yeah.
better off having a spelling mistake because at least people
Yeah.
know that's human
Yeah. It's like
versus
the M
AI. So
dash,
like, yeah,
or it's like the phrasing comes up. It's like, I'm going to be frank with you. Like, you can always tell that's exactly like from AI. Like, it's always the same phrases over and over.
yeah, that's like, that's not sales, that's relationship building. It's like, oh, okay, like here we get like, more of that type of grammar. So just being cognizant and just being aware, because I think it's easier for people to point fingers and then not realize that their own behavior and activity is
Yeah.
coming across the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But then kind of going to like, you just mentioned something like, the 100 calls just to randomly, like, that doesn't get you anywhere. And yeah, I agree. Do the 10 calls that actually get somebody on the phone who actually cares that you're calling. And it's
Yep.
not so much about just doing extra actions, rather, how can you be the most effective possible with the least amount of effort possible? I'm not saying don't work, but if you could do 10 calls and you land 4 new roles in a day in less than an hour, hell, you're done for
Do
the day.
that,
I mean,
right? Yeah,
yeah,
why would I brag about making 100 cold calls a day where I'm more impressed with the person that's effective, right?
yeah,
And all that. And then you just have to, that's the job, right? That's the work as a recruiter or a salesperson, or if you're full desk, like, that's the job that you're what's the sliding scale? And I was telling the group 4 years ago, I did way more manual messaging and I was following up with every comment more and all this other stuff. Now I don't have to do that. I can potentially get help doing that, but I'm less concerned because I'm dealing with like actual active clients and a full client load and like building up the team and all that. Like, so that will evolve, but you just have to also kind of know where you're at and what your goals are for that month, the quarter, the year, like you might just have to suck it up and do more manual work, even with just let AI help you just be better at that, right?
Mhm.
Until you get to the next place, and it's like, okay, great, I got 20 roles to work on. Now I got to master fulfillment and like have AI and automation and content help me expedite and be as efficient as possible with my fulfillment process. And so like there's just phases of business and phases obviously of life and business and just really knowing where you're at and taking ownership over it, knowing that it will evolve
Mhm.
over time. And then too many people get skip steps and then get so overwhelmed that they don't do anything, or they're trying to do everything all at once versus just like chipping away every single day. And like you're not going to solve everything in one day. And the way I relate this to content is a lot of people want to start posting content and they'll post everything they know in one post. And I'm like, no, write everything down you know and break it up 1 point per post, one a day. So share everything you know over 150 posts in a year, not trying to
Yeah.
get everything into one big blog article that a certain amount of people see. But if you do it over 150 times, people will see it over and over again, and then you just make it more digestible for your
Yeah.
market. And I think that's the content approach that take, and I think that's the approach to just all of this to take
Yeah.
is just like chip away, even with the appeal and the lure of AI, just still keep that chipping away mindset. That's who I see as successful.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
those end up being our big case studies and testimonials, but no one really sees the chipping away process they have daily.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then, I mean, just last thing, just going to throw on, you're talking about like the 150 ideas, just a self hack I use for my content as well. For those out listening, that's what I do. I make a big this, and I'll try to spend 1 or 2 days a month writing out my posts for a month. Spend a few hours doing it by myself. If I use AI, I always, always, always edit. No M dashes, no AI slop, and
Yeah.
build content out month, 2 months at a time. So.
And I see it, right? And I can see it on the formatting of your posts, and I can already see what you've probably removed from it, right? If people say, "Hey, I put this in, I have AI write it, then I post it," I think it's the opposite. I think you put some stuff in, AI helps you come up with some ideas or maybe some framework or where you could go, and then you edit it, right? It's kind of the
Right on.
the 10-80-10 rule, and I think that's the people that I see that and they apply that to everything they do with content, with messaging, with list building and all that. It's like where can AI expedite the learning curve and the time on this, but it needs my touch on this
Yep.
stuff. And I know people are talking about it, but only so many people are actually executing it. And I think people it can be easy to make excuses to do everything, but that's the people that are actually driving revenue from all these activities. That's what they're doing across the
Yeah.
board.
Yeah, and it's just like you just got to get going. So like
Yeah.
this is a role. Like I said, this is kind of going back to like the whole nearshore and overall AI. This is one of the most common roles we do, and they could call it whatever you want. But somebody who understands how to make AI come together, bring things together, and just make your company be more successful.
Well, that's huge. And I think you and I probably have to have continued conversation because that's something I'm looking at is making the digital recruiter process like an actual role. And that's what we have been doing it. And I think that is every agency needs that type of person on their team, that type of specialist.
Mm.
And so I feel like we could have definitely some more conversations around that. But I just want to like for if I'm a lot of our listeners are recruiting agency owners. I'm a recruiting agency owner. How and when should I think about talking to you and leveraging you, your team, and what everything you guys bring to the table?
Yeah, so I mean, we're pretty open. What I would say is like anybody who's at least interested in exploring what Latin America could do. I love talking to people. If you can't pick up from this chat, I
Yeah.
really enjoy talking and getting to this. So I mean, reach out, and I'd always kind of like to understand a bit more of their needs. But usually, we see a couple things in common. Usually, for recruiting agencies or small business or mid enterprise, they usually have an ongoing hiring need that they need to fill a role, that they're at least interested in exploring, near shore or even offshore. And I could talk them through both options as well. And they tend to they at least have the roles defined and they know what they're looking for. I think if those three things kind of come together, Latin America can make it pretty easy. And then take it a step farther, I think for those who found like the AI ops role or anything that we kind of were chatting about, if there's interest to understand a bit more what that could look like I said, that's one of the most common roles we do. And
Yeah.
so I always just kind of walk people through, hey, this is kind of what you need to make sure you're successful and you get moving forward. basic numbers are, I mean, whatever it costs in the United States, just cut it in half, and we could probably find it. And so we do a lot of services role, a lot of ops, AI, tech roles. We also do a lot of sales roles, SDRs, BDRs. So for those agencies that don't run full desk, if they're looking
Yeah.
just for the BDR motion, it can be pretty interesting from that in America for Colombia. Just see what there is.
I love it. I love it. Any This is super helpful. So yeah, if you're listening, I mean, book and map it out, whether you're learning about Nearshore or whatever else. Like it's just, to talk to Eric, and because it's there's a place and there's a time and a place and understanding. And I mean, even as you do more business development, I'm sure like there's ways to partner, right? For especially if you're solo and you have a client or prospect comes to you like, hey, can you help us hire 10 of these types of people, right? There's like solutions around that of like doing like a partnership type angle and everything else. It's just like, or even what's like, what some of the solutions are out there. So you want to be more than just like get a role, fill a role, right? And really be
Right.
more collaborative, consultative, having network that your prospects and clients can leverage and call you not
Mm-hmm.
just about one role, but if they're just trying to solve hiring problems in general,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even like reshape their strategy. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, right on. And I think like partnerships, that's we do a lot of partnerships as well. So, it's
yeah,
not so much just about what role fill. How do you kind of grow your company, move that forward?
yeah,
And then just even on a side note, I mean, if anybody just wants to learn more about Colombia and how amazing Bogota is,
yeah.
I call myself the unofficial ambassador of Colombia to the world because nobody nominated me. I just nominated myself. But I
I
like
love
talking
it.
about Colombia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. We want to sound like any last bits of wisdom, advice, anything that you got that's top of mind that you want to leave the listeners with.
Yeah, I mean, for those out there, I mean, just show up every day, put in the work, 1% every day, 1% better every single day. And then, I mean, just kind of going back near shore, it could be a great option. It's not for everyone, but for a lot of companies, it could be a really cool option. And even if you just want to dip your toes, like I said, reach out. Myself or somebody on my team is always happy to chat and come visit me in Bogota.
So it's on my list. We got a team member actually that spent some time in the States and some time in Colombia as well. And so I'm trying to
Awesome.
figure out how to get down there and when and where. So I'll
That's
be
awesome.
maybe first in line hitting you up. So, but
Yeah.
Eric, go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, look, yeah, do it, man. Yeah, that'd be great. Great to see you here. And remember, we're at 9,000 feet, so get ready to be breathing
I'll
pretty
bring the
heavily for those
oxygen
first few.
tank.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Ohio diet will probably require me to have an oxygen tank, but that's all right. We'll figure it out. We'll get adjusted. It'll be good for me. So, but Eric, I appreciate being on here. It's great to meet you and talk to you and learn more about what your story, what you've built, and congrats on the success and the 3 businesses and the family and being an unofficial ambassador and all this good stuff and just sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. Just really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Carl. Really appreciate it, and look forward to continuing the conversation.
Absolutely. Connect with Eric on LinkedIn. We'll have the LinkedIn URL in the episode summary. Connect with him, book a call, chat with him. And until next time, y'all, happy hunting.